Hello everyone, and welcome to our Discover Madrid, Live and Study in the Capital of Spain with ISA webinar. The goal of today's session is to offer information about ISA's academic offerings in Madrid. We know that you're very well acquainted with the city itself, so we won't spend too much time on that. We just really want to dig into the academic offerings of ISA specifically. So for those who have not yet spoken to us personally, my name is Dan Puzzo. I am the Madrid Program Manager, and I'm with my colleague.
I'm Nair. I am the Madrid Site Specialist. Here on the screen you have our contact information. If there is any specific question you might have after the webinar is over, feel free to contact us there.
Yes, and definitely feel free to contact either of us. We work in tandem, and so we can direct you to the proper person, even if that's a question that one of us will field or the other. And just to give you a little bit of background as to our personal experience in Madrid, I lived in Alicante, Spain as a student for 6 months, and then more recently in 2016, I lived in Madrid for a year, so that's how I'm acquainted with the city.
And I spent a semester studying in Salamanca, Spain, and then returned to live in Madrid for a few months in 2015.
Okay, so the agenda for today's meeting, we're going to keep it brief. We just want to introduce you to our team on site, just the way that we introduced you to ourselves just now, because they are our strongest asset. We're going to talk a little bit about the resources that ISA students have available to them in the city of Madrid. And of course, as I said, we'll spend the lion's share of today's presentation on our academic offerings. We'll go through very briefly a couple of the great cultural highlights of our program, and then we will leave time for Q&A at the end. As my colleague Tara said, if you do have questions, please enter them into your chat. And we will be able to address them since we can't hear you on the presentation.
All right. So here are the lovely faces of our ISA Madrid staff that are on site. These are the people that work with the ISA students who are studying abroad. We have Julio, who is our resident director. He began with ISA Granada 8 years ago and has been with us since. Carlos and Sara, who you see next to him, have both been with ISA for 14 years. That's something we are really happy about, that we have very experienced staff who have worked in various locations around Spain with ISA. And then we have Carmen and Ana, who both work with student services and organizing cultural activities. Oh, one more thing to highlight about all of our staff members is that they are fully bilingual. We have some students who prefer to speak with them in Spanish to practice while they're abroad, but they are also very able to assist in English as well. Some things we'd like to highlight about the health and safety considerations we take for students who are on site. Our staff is available to assist with all student incidents, whether it is something like going to the doctor for a routine visit or filing a police report. They are always available. We tend to work with a hospital that has an international department with English-speaking staff. That way students are comfortable, doing whatever they need to do at the hospital. We have a staff member on call with a 24/7 emergency phone. We give students on site the local number in Madrid, and we also have an on-call phone for our US-based staff that works with anyone stateside who needs more information. Lastly, our resident staff in Madrid is supported by our US-based health, safety, and security team. Some of you advisors may be familiar with Robin and Patrick. They are a wonderful team, and they help us assist with any incidents as well.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I know that you're all very well acquainted with the city of Madrid itself, so we won't spend too much time going through the highlights. As you know, it's the largest city in Spain, both geographically and culturally, the center of Spain. And one of the things that makes the city so great as an option for our students is the fact that it is so accessible via the metro and cercanías. And one of the things that we aid in doing is we secure the abono de transporte, the metro card, for our students. So they simply, for our semester and year students, so they simply need to load 20 euros worth of credit on it each month, and the whole city is their oyster. So, as you know, the city is famous for Parque del Retiro and a bunch of centrally located museums, as well as one of the most popular sites in all of sports fandom, the Real Madrid Stadium, which we'll get into more later.
All right, so to give you an idea of city living as an ISA student, these are some things we like to highlight. Our ISA office is located right next to Puerta del Sol, which is the very center of the city, so it's very accessible. Our housing is located throughout the city. Students will commute to the university using the metro as well as the cercanías. Those are short distance trains used to get to Carlos III, which is one of our universities that we'll talk about later. And then our Bridging Cultures program, which we often refer to as the BCP, this is the first 3 days of orientation to the city that our students have once they first arrive to Madrid. During the BCP, students will visit the city. They'll have a tour of the whole city as well as visiting the university so that they know exactly how to get to their classes. To touch on our housing options, we have 4 options. The first is a homestay. This is the most popular option. This allows a student to live with a local family in Spain. They have all of their meals included, which is very nice to have some home cooking. It also is great because they get the opportunity to practice their Spanish language with, local residents. So a lot of students who are looking for that authentic experience will choose the homestay. The next option is the residencia. This is a small dorm-style building. Students have their own room as well as their own bathroom in the residencia. There are international students as well as local Spanish students living in the residencia, so it's a great way to meet other people, student-age people at the residencia. The next option is the apartment. We house 3 to 4 ISA students in an apartment. Every student has their own bedroom, and then there are shared living spaces like the living room and the kitchen. The apartment comes fully furnished, so students will have their bed, a desk, and linens in their bedroom, as well as the kitchen will have utensils, plates if they wish to do their own cooking. The last option we have is independent housing, which is usually for students who might have a relative or someone they know living in Madrid and they do not use ISA housing. Next, we're going to look at the universities we work with in Madrid. The first one is Universidad Antonio de Nebrija. This university is located quite centrally. It's just about 10 minutes north of the ISA office by metro. We have programs there with international students as well as a program with locals, so you can take your pick among those. The offerings involve classes in English as well as Spanish. We have language and culture, business, history, literature, and the nice thing about that is a student has the ability to either take all of their classes in English, all of them in Spanish, or a mix of the two. So it's very flexible that way. We do have an optional intensive Spanish language course as well that can be added on to the start of the semester in the fall. That's 2 weeks long, so that happens the first 2 weeks of September. In the spring, it's a 4-week intensive, so that's for the month of January. We also have a new 2-week summer program that will be running starting summer 2019. It is a sports management program and it is set up with an experiential learning design. So students will take part in lectures, they will go on field trips to various sporting stadiums and sports management points of interest, and then they will also have some field trips to other locations that are relevant to this industry. Finally, the Universidad Antonio de Nebrija uses the ECTS credit system. Generally, we can explain that as 2 ECTS converts to 1 US standard credit, and that will be reflected on the student's transcript once they finish their program. The other university we work with in Madrid is Universidad Carlos III de Madrid. We often refer to it as UC3M or just Carlos III. Here we have an offering that is courses with locals in English, which we are really excited about since there are a lot of options there. There are 2 separate campuses. One of them houses the Business, International Studies, and Communications courses. The other has our STEM courses and a variety of engineering departments. The Business Administration as well as Finance and Accounting are AACSB accredited. And as I mentioned, there are the 2 campuses. Getafe is the name of the campus with Business and International Studies, whereas Leganés is where the STEM courses are located. Both of those are about 40 minutes southwest of the city center, and students use the cercanías to get there, to commute to class. Most students take 24 to 30 ECTS per semester, and most courses are worth 6 ECTS credits, so that would be between 4 and 5 classes. We want to talk a little bit about the Carlos III student profile, just because it is a little different from some of our other offerings. At Carlos III, we're really looking for academically serious students. The requirement is that you must have a 3.0 GPA. Courses are generally, they require self-directed work, so we're looking for a student who is more independent in that nature. Something that differs from U.S. universities is that in the Spanish academic system, some of the business classes are very math intensive. So if you're looking into taking business courses there, it is advisable to have a strong background in math and maybe not just the basic statistics courses. It can get quite intensive. And then the last thing we'd want to highlight is that it requires a student who is able to manage their free time very judiciously. It's not really the ideal place for a student who's looking to travel every single weekend or not devote time outside of class. A few notes on course selection for Carlos III is that there are often prerequisites that are required for a student to have in order to enroll in a class. This could be listed on the course syllabus on the UC3M website, which you can see a screenshot of here. Our ISA website has a link to this, so that's where students would look to find the class offerings. Another way that there can be prerequisites is in the form of background knowledge, and that is to say that in Spain, if you're a student completing a bachelor's degree, you must take your courses in a specific order. So if you're looking at taking a 4th year class as an international student, there may be classes that came before that in the degree that you would need to have a shared background knowledge of in order to follow along with the local students. I give extensive advising and send emails about this just to explain to students really what to look for, but that's just to give you the highlights of it. When you are on the UC3M website, the courses are organized in semester 1 and semester 2. Those just correspond to the fall and spring semesters. And finally, we do have an add drop period. It's usually the first 7 to 10 days of each semester. Students can use that to make any changes or add any extra classes if they feel necessary.
So, just to add a little bit to the cultural highlights of the program, we do have a weekly cultural agenda that our colleague in Madrid publishes with any happenings that are going on in the city that specific week, and it really is quite detailed as far as cultural events, museum expositions, athletic and sporting events. It's a very wide variety and very in-depth to really allow the students to take full advantage of what the city has to offer, not just in general, but that specific week.
As far as excursions, we have a few of them listed here. The Morocco trip is a very popular one that we offer. It's a 5-day trip to Morocco, and students get to experience being out in the desert. They do a camel ride, they explore Fez, and it's usually one that students talk about the most because it's a very different excursion from some of our other ones.
Yeah, and just to add to that, many students tell us that this excursion to Morocco, though it is optional, is one of the main reasons why they opted to study with ISA, as not all providers offer it, and it does tend to be a big highlight of the program for them.
Yes. The other excursions we go on are throughout the rest of Spain. We go to Granada and Salamanca over the weekend, and then we do 2-day trips as well to Toledo and Segovia. So, let's see. That brings us to the conclusion of this presentation. Does anyone have any questions? You can feel free to send them through the chat. We're happy to answer. Let me see, I did find one here. Oh. Is there a breakdown of the cost? So our prices for 2019 have not yet been released, but if you're looking for price breakdowns, that's something that our program manager would be able to give once a student has applied. And then I saw a question here.
The timing of this is actually very fortuitous because we're going to be publishing the finalized prices very shortly, as a matter of fact, likely tomorrow. And so I will be able to provide program price breakdowns upon request. So as I mentioned, you can get in touch with myself or Tara, and I will be happy to provide that for you.
And then in addition, there was a question about whether the cost of the Morocco trip is included in that. It is not. Morocco is an extra additional cost if a student would like to opt into that excursion. Another question that we got earlier was about student visas. If a student is going on a program that is 90 days or more in length, which all of our semester and year-long programs in Madrid are, they will require a student visa if they're a U.S. citizen. Something that ISA does to help out with that is we do run a visa service with all but one of our consulates. So in the event that a student would like to apply through us, we would send them a list of the requirements. They will mail all of their visa application materials directly to us in Austin, Texas. And then the corresponding representative for the consulate will travel to the consulate, apply for them in person in our group batch processing appointment, and then send them back their passport with the processed visa. So that makes it a little bit easier if traveling to the consulate in person yourself is not feasible. Do we have any other questions?
You're definitely welcome to send any questions you may think of after this presentation has concluded to myself or to Tara. It's an ongoing dialogue, and we're happy to continue to answer your questions. But otherwise, we just wanted to thank you for taking the time to join us today. We hope that this has been informative for you, and we're very excited to work with you and your students going forward to bring them on over to Madrid.
Thank you.